West Center will start.
Hi everyone, thank you for coming to this seminar jointly organized by University of Hawaii Center for Southeast Asian Studies and the East-West Center. I'm very proud to be able to introduce Dr. Sopheak Chann to you. So Sopheak is a visiting postdoctoral fellow at the James Madison College at Michigan State University. He is also a lecturer at the Royal University of Phnom Penh in Cambodia at the Department of Natural Resource Management and Development. So he received his PhD from the University of Sydney in 2017 in human geography. And he has a master's degree in applied sciences, spatial information sciences, also from the University of Sydney. His research interests are in critical development, environmental justice, political ecology, and post-conflict resource landscapes, critical cartography, and climate change. And it is a huge honor to have him here today to talk to us about hydropower dams in Cambodia and the impacts of water grabbing on land and resource access. So yeah, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and I'm very honored to be here. And this is my fourth day here now. A lot of things to see and a lot of people to meet and many interesting conversations. And this is my last talk on the damming rivers in Cambodia. So we talk about the impact of water grabbings on land and resource access in the Cambodia northeast. Mainly on the lands, the highlands of Stem Traing province. The case study will be on the Lower Sesame 2 dams. So this talk is based on our papers, joint papers by Professor Sengo Mahanti at ANU and Catherine Chamberlain, a student from Michigan State University who worked with us. And we in the process of submitting it, we already submitted it to the journals that is being reviewed, and hopefully we come up with good results. And talk today would also try to get some response and comment and see how our works go. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge some people and institutions that bring me here. So first of all, I'm here under the my postdoc is under the loose grant at the Michigan at James Madison College within the Mekong Cultural projects, and partly also funded by the Mekong Nation Scholarship and the Wonder of the Mekong project that has sponsored my visiting fellows here. And also the research that I'm presenting here is based on the ANU projects that lead by Professor Sengo Mahanti, and the project is named the Ruptures, Socio-Ecological Ruptures and the Transformation of in the Mekong. And also personally thank mainly my old colleagues, my office mates at the University of Sydney, thank Dr. Miriam, who also, worked really hard to get me here and making everyone so welcoming. I really appreciate that. And also, Hawaii Center for Southeast Asia Studies and the East-West Center that helped sponsor my trip here. Thank you very much. And thank you everyone for coming here. I'm very pleased with that. So before I go to the talk on the dams, so on Sunday, Terry, Mingli, and Savun, our colleague, took us to see how the Hawaiian build the walls and how it's they talk about rocks. And the teacher who taught you how to build a wall, he said, we don't break the rock. We never put the hammers on the rock. This is disrespectful. We respect the rock because our ancestors passed away and they become the earth and the rocks. So we are part of the natures. And it led to a question of, so if breaking the rock makes so much sort of emotional and also practical meaning to how we live a life, how about we break the river, or we cut the river? What does the implication would look like? So my talk today is framed around the notion of ruptures, socio-ecological rupture, how that's kind of we block the river and ruptures this sort of socio-ecological relation and what the implications are, especially those that happen on the land that are ethnically diverse with a lot of ethnic minorities and indigenous people. So this is the contents, just typically the background. I will give an overview of the dam, minority ethnics, and resource frontiers, how the relationship look like, dam and water contestation, the dam and socio-ecological ruptures, and how we frame the ruptures, talk about the fieldwork, and then the results, and then conclusions. So the background, so as of now, at least 150 hydropower dams have been built across the Mekong Basin, almost 70% of which were completed after 2010, based on the Stimson data, which is a lot. Just over the last 10 years, the number of dams just increasing all over the Mekong. Of course, most of the dams are on the tributaries, a few on the mainstream, especially those in China. And at the same time, we see the deforestation rate across the Mekong is pretty high. Has lost about more than 30% of it over the last 10 or 20 years. When you look at Cambodia specifically, there are 10 dams being operated and 36 potential sites, 27 under study, and one is under construction. It's based on the Odyssey data. And so which means that there's possibly more to come, and 10 are being operating. And at the same time, we also see the deforestation and land conflict in Cambodia also increasing. So we lost 20% of the forest, mostly in the north and the northeast. This is a WWS statistic. And at the same time, we see the growth in Cambodia is relatively high country with the economic growth between 6 to 7.5% annually between 2010 and 2019. This is based on the World Bank data statistic. So by looking at these numbers and the issues that emerge between the land and the water conflicts, there's very limited research look at the relationship between water and land. The water governance tend to focus mainly on the water, and then so my talk here would focus on how this relationship, the ruptures that rupture the water affects the way people access to land and resources, and especially when we study the place like Northeast Cambodia, that is ethnically diverse regions of the country and also of the Mekong. So dam and ethnicity and resource frontiers, many of the dams are built in the forest areas, some are near the borders, in Cambodia particularly, because of the topography of the land. It sort of make more sense to sort of block the water in the rivers that are slopey than the flat area. So those dams tend to be operated and constructed around those regions. And and then at the same time that those regions tend to be home to the ethnic minority and the highland people and the group of indigenous people. So in Cambodia, there's between 24 different ethnic groups that identify as the indigenous people. But there's some people who live on that borderland and the forest area also not identify as indigenous people. Some don't refuse to identify as indigenous people. Some are not yet recognized. So there's the notion of indigeneities in Cambodia is also complex, and somehow when it comes to resource access, it has implication how people access to resource and how the definition of indigenous groups define how people access to the resources. So my talk is also around that notion of indigenous right, land right, and how it affects people access to land and resources. And in the picture here is below the Lower Sesan 2 Dam. It was around 6, 7 at night. Fishermen start to sort of go and find the fish below the dams. And it's ironically, you see the dam, a lot of light, but the people still use a torch from the head, and the battery, where that come from, is also an interesting story to capture. And also the dam, how it operates, it directly linked to the demand of the water, of the energy in the city. So they said when the city needs a lot of energy, the dam will release the water, which is at night. And in the morning, they start to close the gate because they don't need that much energy. So that underneath the dam, the fluctuation of the water pretty much fluctuate in the daily basis. And the fishermen try to adapt to the flow of the water. So at some time, let's say in the early evening, they start to put the fishing hooks, and then early in the morning, they start to collect the fish. And it's sort of how the new adaptation to the ecological change, as an example of how people learn how to live with the changing of the river. When you look at the dam and the contestation between dam, land, water, contestation of dam and the conservation areas. With the dam, so also because of this kind of geography of the location of the dam that operate usually also inside the conservation area. So the blues, usually this protected area, and you look at the sort of overlay the data together, those dams tend to be located in those sort of regions where highly restricted with conservation restrictions. So this kind of, as a geographer, I tend to sort of overlay things together and see how things happen where. At the same time, those kind of forest frontiers also been bombarded by the economic development investments. So the land that's used for agricultural intensification, expansion. And in the Northeast in particular, those also, the dam also operate surrounded by the ERCs at the same time. So you see this geography of the dam, the land concessions and the conservation is happen in the same place. So the idea of like when the water is ruptured, is the movement of the people and how they access the land tend to be directed toward either conservation or the economic land concession kind of area. That's how the contestation kind of look like. So how do we conceptualize the impact of the dam? So we view them not as a moment when the disruption happens. So we see them as a rupture moment, but it's the impact is escalate the ongoing issues of land and resource that have access that happening for decades. And also it escalates how people emerge from the wars and how they deal with that. So then sort of that moment of impact by the dam escalate other issues that's already there. So those issues are not new to the place that, but the dam just somehow escalate. And from that ideas of rupture, we look at the relationship between the spatiality of the water that change the spatiality of the land and resource access, and how it changed the societal transformations. And the other one, if we look at the time in terms of what happened, what kind of event and issue that an ongoing as a post-conflict country to the rapidly economically developed countries, and so how that's kind of escalated. And one of the issues that we look at is also the emotional landscapes of the people who have been affected for generations, and how that emerged when the dams kind of into use in their size. And also we suggest that the dams tend to create the uneven impacts. So different groups, different power dynamics are recreated through the process of this ruptures moment. So this is the image of the lower Sessan 2, and it's just symbolizing this reservoir above, and the water down there is fluctuated on a daily basis, and people have to deal with the changing of the river. This is Sessan to them. So field work, we use multiple, we done a few period of field trip. So me and a colleagues went there with the scooters, and we drove around and to identify impacted villages. And we did the preliminary study to see how many people living around the sites, and also how we get access to the site, what the security look like, and we do it. So those first field trip allow us to do that, and come back with the report, and we write like, okay, there's few villages, different village affected differently by the dam and the displacement, and then after that we went back. Me and my colleague Sengo and a few other colleagues went back, did the in-depth interview, and we used different tools, including one tool we used the photo selections. That was for our work on emotional aspects. So we print out tens of photos randomly with random image some from the site, most from other part of the world, and ask people to choose a few photos that they think that resonate with them, and ask them how they feel and why they choose that photo. And the results are very interesting. Some people choose the photo of the rapids, and they hold it to their heart. Say, I missed that. It's what I missed. And some people choose the photo of buffalo. It's like back then we can raise buffalo, and now we can't raise buffalo. We don't even know how to raise buffalo anymore. And it's water buffalo, but it's water buffalo that live in the river. It's kind of the whole changing of this, change the livelihood and change the way people pursue space and change the relationship as well. Some people, very few people would choose a new house, and they want to build a new house, but most people would go back in time and choose the picture that symbolized their emotional effects of that. And then we did a follow-up field work with photographers, and try to, me as a researcher, work with photographer, what kind of precision change, and then what kind of photo to capture this. And the photographer have worked with that before the dam was constructed as well. So there's an ongoing work, we collaborate, and most of the photo that shows are from a professional photographer. His name is Thomas. And people also share the information along the way. If anything happens, they just call us. And we communicate with other NGOs and see how we can help to ease out the process if that happens. So this is the expansion of the water and the land, and how it's increased the land squeeze. So this is the map. So Sessan 2 is built in the intersection at the end of the intersection between Sessan and Sopheak. So the Sessan is the north one, Sopheak is down there. And a lot of the rivers, the people we found out that the people live on the Sessan, particularly in that side, a lot of Lao people. And the one who live on the Sopheak, a lot of Phnom people who are impacted by that. And from that preliminary study, we interviewed commune heads and village authority. We identify how many people in each villages. And this is the demography of those places and the ethnic ethnicity of those communities, and also the number of the people. And so the red dot is the flooded village that completely flooded, and they need to be relocated. And the green, the dark green one is the people who live at the edge of the reservoir. They're not relocated, but their farm have been heavily affected by the reservoir expansion. And the yellow ones are the new migrant people who come, mostly Jam people who come to find fish, and also initially they come to work on the logging, on the company who granted the logging concession in the reservoir. So this is the demography. So we have diverse ethnic groups, including Jam, Lao, and Punong, Tamprao as well. And so also in the email, you can see that the area is already surrounded by the ESC, and it's also surrounded by the conservation space. So when the waters kind of expands, it doesn't seem to be anywhere else to go. It's sort of push into those locations. So within these different villages affected by the dam, so the fully affected village, the flooded village, some choose the compensation, so they decide to move to the new location where the company organized for them, and they enter to a new location. We call it New Strago or New Kabaromir, or new one. And some people choose not to relocate by the projects, so they relocate themselves right next to the edge of the reservoir, and then build their own village, and they call themselves Old Strago, the old village, and they sort of claim that they are the original owner of the village. So we think that's kind of relocation, different tension occur between those who choose to move and also those who choose to stay. So that's kind of ruptures social relation within the same communities as well. And those who are in about the reservoir, they don't relocate, usually stay there, but very precarious because the flood chain very uncertainty, with a lot of uncertainty, and they very precarious situation that they have to live very close to the flood, because especially in the Sopheak River, above that there's another Yali dams in Vietnam, and when the Yali dam open the water, release the water, and then it reached the Sopheak reservoir, and then the flood escalate very quickly. So this is also the impacts that happens. So in my presentation about the result, I will go through each type of those villages one by one and see what's happened there and how people respond to that and who they are. So this is the people who refuse to be relocated. They settle near the reservoir, but this is the old village of Baromir. After a few months, a year, all the vegetation, the fruit crop, like mostly this are mango and coconut tree, to die out and become like a wetlands. And some people raise the buffalo there, and they still go and visit. And it's very important for those who stay to sort of ask a space where they can claim that how they have been affected. A lot of NGO who advocate for them tend to go there and take some pictures, and a lot of graffiti drawing there as well. What the issues are is that they after they relocate, they move just a few K, because if they know the geography of that very well, they live very close to the reservoir, they get flood. So they find a higher land that they can settle, and those land tend to be less fertile. So to access to food like rice is very challenging. And they also, because those lands are also inside the ESC, then they're sort of fighting with the ESC to claim for land to live there. And that the conflict with ESC is not new. They have been, from the interview, they have been contesting and fighting with the ESC for years before the dam arrived. But when the dam arrived, instead of living near the edge of the ESC and their farm was inside, or their spiritual land was inside the ESC, and now they right inside the ESC, and that escalated a lot of tensions. So beyond the tension with the ESC, they also have a lot of tension within the family and within the community themselves. So in the early stage of the dams, most of them agree that they won't move. And when you go to the old village sign, they said, "We're not moving out. This is our village." But closer to the flood, the flood start to rise up, and most people decide that we can't. If we don't move now, we don't get house, we don't get land. So most people decide to move, and because of the decisions, some who choose to stay, they fear betrayal. That their villagers, their neighbor, their family betray them. And that happened in all sorts of scale. Some husband move, wife stay. Some siblings move, other siblings stays. And they still talking about each other. It's like, you move, you abandon us. And again, as someone who from Cambodia, the notion of abandonment is very strong. That, you know, when things happen, if you stick together, you leave us. And that is not uncommon with someone who grew in the post-conflict families, that the abandonment in the hard time stick together. But that's kind of trigger also this kind of family dynamics that's happening then. So at the same time, there also friction within the new migrants, the Cham migrants who are seeking for land and fish opportunity to fish. Their response mechanism is they because they're entitled to indigenous land right. So they start to cleanse all the flood from the old village as the beginning of the territories to far away, like 8 or 10 kilometers off that location, and climb the surrounding, including water body, as this is our land and we will protect this. And the sign said this is a biodiversity conservation zone, and anyone disobey our rule will get fined. So these signs are put by the indigenous people themselves, the Bunong people themselves, which is and then now they still working with the government agency to try to get the indigenous land registered. And the government also start to provide school back to that village. So they were somehow accepted as another form of village, and in the process of claiming for communal land to sort of settle down in that, and they want their village to be called the Kabarumi, the original one, not the new one. Because they're indigenous people, as indigenous, they got a lot of support from indigenous NGOs who help them to register their lands and all that. Srako is a Lao village that located on the Sesan River. There's a different story. So their village flooded. They moved right near the edge of the water, and right inside, half of it is inside the former community forestry that was being established. And because of the arrival of the dead, unpredictably, the community kind of dissolved, and people start to use that land and to claim for private lands. And also, some of the land was also near inside the ERC. So the tensions also happen similarly. And they also have a lot of anger and not happy with the Cham migrant who come and fish in the area. So their response mechanism is different because they're not indigenous. So they claim for registered land as private land title. And their village is not, by then, when we were there, they're not yet recognized by the government as the autonomous village. It's still you are still in the Srako that belong to the new Srako, the Srako that is relocated. So even their existence there, to be there, still yet even recognized. But the Bunong have a lot more recognition compared to the love there. And they haven't received any infrastructure, just like the Bunong community, like support. And so their advocacy, their campaign for the right to be there is very fragmented and very fragile, relatively to the Bunong, who are a lot more stronger and collective in a sense. For the new Kabarumir, so this is a new location. So the company built the house, and each of them look the same and very lined, like a very systematic structures of buildings. And people complain that it's hard to access to clean water. So even they dig the well a lot of time, and some people try to buy water, so add up a lot of expenses. Also, they complain that the material for the house is not very good. get old very quickly. And these are not the used house, because some of the house, they said we keep it there. Maybe some people decide to move and they still have the house. So they still open for people back then. Like if the old when people decide to move, some still have the house, but some, even they move, they haven't got it because there's some unclear registration who have the new family. If you are married and live in the same family, you're called by local government as one family. So then they don't have the new family who live in the same house, don't get the new land, something like that. So there's a lot of confusion and unclear allocation. And also the land is, they give one plot of land with the house and another plot of farmland. And some people receive only the house and not the farmland, and some people receive both. Some in new cycle or the past, some people start also thinking about selling the land in new environment as well, because they need to build a new life. And some of the option is that if they don't take the compensation, they will receive they would receive $6,000. I can't remember this actual number, to build their own house, and some choose to build their own house with that amount of money is given. Again, they also live within near the ERC and also conservation areas. Conflict with migrants also happen there. This is a news record, so they live right next to the edge of the reservoir. And the compensation process seems similar. Some people receive lands with the house. Some people receive just the house. Some people receive just the land. New cycle very next to the conservation area. So they apart from dedicated land, people can go and clear the land. And in the past, Lao people, they also do somehow like a seasonal shifting cultivation to some extent. And now, because of the close off of this space, this is no longer practiced. And new generations, usually they have to sort of get a certain amount of land so that they can marry, build a new life, build a new family, but now that is impossible. Limited livelihood opportunities, so they're quite remote in the dam and strike go to get out of this space to find work is difficult. So a lot of people depend on logging, still harvesting timber that is left over from the logging process during the dam constructions. This is another form of village, which is the one near the edge of the reservoir. So you see the rice over there, the rice field getting flooded by the reservoir. Look at the image. And then, so when the water rises up, the whole rice field becomes just like wetland, and it can last for weeks to months, and then rice field can't bear that. So they have to abandon their lands and they have to move somewhere else that is not flooded. But because of that kind of sort of challenge, they also move into the ERC area, and usually the land is less fertile and far away from the water. And the rice product that comes from the land is very low compared to the old land. So less production, more risky, and far away from the house. There also, a lot of conflict with ERCs happen at the same time because of they move to the new location, and because of the dam, also the roads had to be built, land speculation, and some people clear land and buy and sell land right away. This is also another issue that because they live in between the two dams, and after in 2019, that a few floods arrived at the same years, and this the village had pointed out to the mark of the water on the poles, and they said, that year there's a 2 or 3 plus flood at the same season, and they live with a lot of uncertainty, and especially old people said, I don't know how to sleep anymore, I don't know how to swim, I'm old now. So for them, it poses a lot of threat in how they would live into right near the water, when the water used to be a river, but now it become a threat. But when you ask them, why don't you move away from the water? First, there's no other land, and the other reason is that they still want to use the water. far away from the water is also challenging. So they still want to live near the water, but the changing of the water is quite threatening. So there's kind of issue there. So this is the new area called the jam fishermen. So when we talk to them, most of them said they didn't have land before, and then they struggled with finding fish where they were because of the fish decline. So they decided to move up. They heard that usually in the first year of the dam construction, the nutrition start to increase. They increase in the reservoir, and a lot of fish, like snakehead fish, mostly the invasive species, start to increase. And fishermen can catch a lot of fish during the early day of the dams. And we found like snakehead fish up to, they said they catch up to 13 kg for snakehead fish. That's massive. And that big, yeah. And so I witnessed one is about 8 kilo, still pretty big. So the increase in terms of number and amount, and also the size of some fishes attract a lot of jam fishermen come from downstream. When we talk to them, most of them say they didn't have farmland there or back home, and also the fish decline very rapidly where they live. But at the same time, these people also were blamed for stealing the fish from the local people who have already been struggling to build their new life on the new land. And it's another form of migrants who, some of them said they work to collect timber for the companies, and now when the dam finished, they should stay because a lot of them also didn't have land back then back home. So they sort of collectively clear a huge chunk of land, and it's inside the conservation area, and they have been dealing with a lot with environmental authorities. Some of them were arrested for doing that. The Indian they have more than 500 families or so, and about 70% of them were identified as jam people. So this is the pictures of those, and they try to rapidly grow cashew and grow to sort of demarcate their land, and to make it look like they have been using the land, so it's less pressure while they were clearing for the land. So being blamed for competing and land for fishing. So some said during the first year after the dam closed the gate, there were a lot of fish, but now they're gone. Even the snails are gone. That's because there's a lot of jam fishermen, and they use modern fishing, destructive fishing gear, and they fish all the time, day and night, because Phunong and Lao people are not familiar with fishing in the reservoir, in the lakes. So water, the reservoir kind of intimidating. So when the storm, they never get out of the house. They just never get into the lakes. And there's rumors going around that people will drown, and because and their boats are built for flowing river, not for the sort of extensive lakes. So they still try to figure out how to live in that kind of water bodies. Conclusion is that the lower Sessantu is a case of rupture that is multiple dimension in play, historical friction to use livelihood, land and water pressure seen today. And with the dam development, the area become a frontier of timber, land and fish. A dam trigger new friction pressure beyond the resettlement to migrant land, claiming resource extraction and resource conflicts. At the same time, we also critiques that the indigenous frameworks are not very inclusive, especially it tend to create more fragmentation between communities. Those who claim to be indigenous have more sense of ownership and customary right to the land, where those who don't have that have loose access to that, especially like Lao people. That's all my presentation today, and thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, please. Thank you.
Hi, Sophia. Great. Any questions in the room? Yeah, sure.
So the last slide of the case studies were of a town village. You did interviews with the town,
Yeah, we did.
and did you ascertain where they came from?
Come from just around Rajesh, come from Kampong Cham.
Oh,
Yeah.
they are in Cambodia. Why are they town?
Huh?
Oh, okay. Yes, all right. I'm mixing it up. Okay. Thank you.
You should read our paper. They have a historical detail of each of those ethnic groups and how, yeah.
Can I follow up though? I always think of the Vietnamese as being the fisher folk, not just the Cham.
Yeah.
I'm kind of interested, you don't see any incursion by Vietnamese.
Not many Vietnamese there.
I mean,
Maybe.
we're
Vietnamese, yeah, mostly Cham, just Cham. And we didn't investigate the network among those. With the farmers, the Cham farmers, some of them were loggers, and then they invite their friend to come, and then as a group. So it's sort of a network of migrants. And some of them said one of the participants said they used to work in Malaysia as a laborers, so like intergenerational labor workers. Some say they work for rubber plantations, and then now it's like, okay, now it's a chance to have lands. And interestingly, one of the participants said, I have done anything in my life, but not the only thing that I haven't done is being rich. It's just an interesting sort of, but it's also sad at the same time.
It might be interesting to follow up with some interviews in the villages where they came. Why did they move?
Yeah, so we have a few interviews, and can look back at one of the women said, there's not much fish there. We were fishermen, and do you have farmland? And said, no, I don't have any farmland. And some of them actually want to pay the debt as well. They were in debt. They come and they're hoping that the increasing the escalation of the fish population would allow them to get quick capitals and then pay back the debt. It's like a water frontiers.
One thing on that subject too is just that the Cham from Kampong Cham have been really the pioneers of kind of market economy for all of the district towns through all of Ratanakiri. I don't know about Stan Trang that well, but where I work, 1994, 95, really when the first big deforestation, sort of the Malaysian timbering was going on. That was the point at which a lot of people were also leaving Kampong Cham because they couldn't get land there anymore. So the land frontier essentially closed in Kampong Cham, but was available. And so in a lot of the villages up there, you have Cham market. They'll operate a store in the market in the district center, and then they'll lend money to people, which they collect in the form of cashews or something else. And that's how they also establishing themselves. So that's part of an ongoing thing. I don't know how, I haven't been in this part of the country, but that's interesting.
It might be interesting to look at the complexity within their communities who are lending the money, but there's also people who have family whose children work as a laborer in the city to send the money to clear land and get land.
A lot of them work as rubber tappers too.
Rubber tappers, yeah. And it's also interesting that the Phnom people said they tried the work in the rubbers and they don't like it. They don't like it.
And they're often not welcome in it, right? Because the rubber plantations like to bring laborers from elsewhere who don't have the kinds of connections, which is why the other thing I was going to say about your talk I thought was so interesting is that it sort of connects up with a lot of other research that's showing that in many cases ethnic minorities are doing better in terms of owning land and hiring laborers to work on their land. So, which runs a little bit counter to how non-governmental organizations usually talk about the threats to indigenous groups. Right? You can see this.
Yeah, but I think based on this case, the indigenous groups tend to be a lot stronger in resisting and also harmonious in the form of how they resist to the change. The Old Reco and old Baramir, they both received at the same time. But we look at the strength of each group. The Lao is a lot fragmented, more fragmented than the Phnom. And I think a lot to do also with the communal land. They don't own land together as a group, and this is like we protect our spirits, and this is our connection to the land. So that's kind of belonging to the land, belonging to the spirit, to the trees that help a lot to keep the community together, in which that doesn't happen in the Lao. One of the interesting stories is that between the Sreko Jah and Sreko Thamai, there was a pagoda, and there's a main Buddha statues, and there was a monk who controlled the pagoda, and he decided to move to a new location, and the villager said, if you move, even the monk can't take the statue with them. And then the statue, it becomes so symbolic, and then they leave it until they flood the statue, and they dive and then took the statue back up, and then store it in the new old Sreko location that they just build a new pagoda. It's like a hut to keep the statue. This is a very interesting stories that I didn't talk about. Yeah.
Okay. This was super interesting. It's kind of different direction, but no, I think there would be some interesting comparative stuff, like maybe to other parts of the world where you have immigrant population and peoples, and you have conservation areas and landscape changes, and maybe I'm thinking of the Amazon or Latin America, and how those two groups relate to one another and how they're perceived by outsiders. But my question was about conservation. I was curious, what are they conserving in these conservation plans, and also does that involve the waterways as well as the rivers and the lakes, the conservation, and are they stocking the lakes or rivers with species that the fishermen like to catch in order to kind of counteract that problem with no fish or not?
So the fish, by the time I was there, the conservation haven't touched on the fish yet. They mainly, it's called the eastern of the Mekong River. It's a conservation corridor. It's actually a newly granted size. The old 1993 conservation protected area, that was not part of it. It is newly granted. Maybe around, can't remember, mid 2010s, something like that. It's called a corridor. It doesn't have a specific destination of what they were. So, I have to find out more. Maybe I don't have enough knowledge about that. Yeah.
Can I follow up from Yi Gan? Can you say more about the impact of dams on fish migrations? For example, the giant catfish or other keystone species with which various ethnic groups have close kinship relations.
Yeah, so if people know Stung Treng is famous for Pasir, and based on the interview from the people who in Sat Khmer, which is about the reservoir, and the people who live down below the dam, they said they haven't seen many, especially in the reservoir. There's no Pasir there. It lives based on the flowing river and the rocks. So it's the lakes. Then they really can't deal with. Most of the species, I'm not a fish expert, so the sort of snakehead I know the most because we eat that a lot, and the sort of scalefish, some of those, and snails. Snails increase a lot, and birds. And you sort of, I think there were cranes. You see like those birds flying in the sky with beak filled with snails. There's a lot of increasing, so it becomes like a wetland ecology instead of like a river ecology. The reservoir and snail, and then also clams. So right now, by the time we were there, most of the fish they used to catch in the first or second years of the dam reservoir were now they're catching mainly clams. In Khmer we call yeah, because it's heavy, so it's a 2,000 real or $1 per kilo if they catch, 30 kilo of clams a day. They make quite good money if they do that. So the booms, the drastic increase of species change from years to years when the water quality and I don't know, maybe also the fishermen, what they catch, and also change according to that.
You want to ask more?
Sure.
No, and then on to this.
Okay. One of the things you focus on ruptures.
Yeah.
And obviously the project is about ruptures.
Yeah.
But one of the things.
But the word Phum Chas and Phum Thmai, who have the right to the old location and who have the right to call themselves as the owner of that they belong, the one who belong to the old and to claim for it. Yeah.
These are like cultural constructs that Cambodians have developed. You know what I mean? It's not new. It's like ongoing.
It's ongoing. Yeah, it can be from the Khmer Rouge periods, and it can be an ongoing of social divisions and how people pursue one another.
In case there's time, I'm wondering what impact, if any, local or international NGOs have on negotiating for local villagers.
There have been, indigenous, I forgot the name of it, have been helping the Bunong community to register their lands. Not quite successful, but it's going. There's some sort of help there. The negotiations, I remember they were asking for at least 5,000 hectares, and they were given 400, and they still said we're not taking that. So we're still kind of negotiating, and then those NGOs try to help to map out their land. And when the community said, my land is there to there, and said, okay, let's try to map out. So those mapping process also happened, but it's pretty much mapping those land mainly inside the ESC, around the ESC.
Can I ask another from an anonymous attendee? Thanks for the presentation. Is the dam the proximate cause that affects access to land, or the non-recognition of indigenous communal ownership of the land? You made mention of the issue of compensation. Apparently, there's some sorts of discriminatory treatments in compensation. Some people are compensated, others not. Is this an issue of indigeneity, or geography, or proximity to the dam?
It's an issue of probably unspoken political dynamics that's happening there. The authorities within the local community themselves, and who get closer to the one who distribute the lands. And I don't have information on that, but there are some. And also the other is that, so it's also triggered the political dynamics before the dam was built, and who closer to the village head, commune head. I don't have the detail on that, but it's also the later you come, they decide to relocate the less chance you have those land and those compensation. So if that's why you have to come early. You get it, both farmland, the house. If you come late, then those house and farmland might be gone and disputed, and you don't have anything to be given, to be offered. So that's also trigger like those who choose to move with the relocation projects.
I have one question on my own. It sounds like the Lao are getting the short end of the stick, and that there's some issue about citizenship. Is that something you can comment on?
They're all
Or
citizenship. They are Cambodian citizenship.
they're Cambodians, but you're saying the Penang are getting, some ways, they're getting better access to land.
Because the land right, the communal land right, but the Lao don't have that because they are Lao.
Because they're not indigenous.
No, they're not indigenous. No, they're Lao. They're not indigenous, so that they don't fit into the criteria of communal land titles. Yeah.
I mean, the Chum are indigenous, but they're not indigenous to the area. They don't have land anywhere, right?
Yeah.
They fall outside of all that.
Yeah. So our paper look at the history of why landless, why they become landless, and what process, not what process, but like process of exclusions, what happened there along the history of I think over 100 years. But there's a jam the same in Vietnam. They are not fishermen. They're doing farming. So that's the history to that. So you might want to read the paper.
Okay, so anonymous attendee is now saying, who gets to define who's indigenous and who's not?
I don't know. I mean, maybe UNESCO have been involved. Yeah, and also based on my study in other part of Cambodia, some people refuse to call themselves indigenous, especially in the Cardamoms, and they were during then there was they said the Khmer Rouge asked them to identify, and then they were hurt by calling themselves indigenous. And now if you ask them, a lot of people said I'm not indigenous. So first of all, they have to self-identify, and second of all, there's institutions like UNESCO who work on that, and the NGO who try to there's some NGO, an NGO that I know of, try to map out and build a network of the communities across Cambodia. Yeah.
I have a question. So I was wondering if you could comment on to what extent is the hydropower company itself involved in these processes of relocation and compensation? Because you talked a bit about the dynamics with the government, but where does the hydropower company as kind of a private entity fit in?
So yeah, so in the relocation scheme, I don't know what extent, but there's another company who subcontract to build the house, and so that's what I know of. So not all of these are built by the company themselves. The company might design and work with the subcontract company to, what house it look like and all that. I don't know, but what I know of it, there's other subcontractors who subcontract to build the house for those villages. Other questions?
I have another question if no one else has questions. So you briefly mentioned the idea of kind of studying the emotional landscape of these changes as well. I was wondering if you could talk more about that. Why is it important to also understand the emotional dynamics of these ruptures and relocations, in addition to the types of perspectives that people have already used to study these sort of issues?
That's my personal opinion. We wrote a paper, but it somehow got the arguments. Emotion indicate actions. So emotional landscape is important also even within different ethnic groups. based on my observation that the indigenous, the Phnom, emotionally they're quite strong and collective, and the Lao are more vulnerable and it's more closed off. And when it comes to respond to the change and respond to the companies or the land issues, I can fear that the Phnom, especially the one who choose not to relocate, hold a lot of price. We are together, we still fight for our land, our ancestors. And the connection to the land give a lot of strength, and it respond in the emotional response to that, even though they are angry, they are upset, but they're not weak, quite strong. But when I don't have a quantitative data to back this up, but in the people who choose to relocate, they feel a bit empty. They feel a bit lost in the sense of like, it's not where I feel they belong. And so those emotional landscape is important, how people cope with the change, and also as an individual and also as a collective response, and how this emotional landscape are structured around the connection to the land and also around the cultural aspect of the community themselves. That's the question. Thank you. Yeah. Any other question?
Well, if there are no more questions, then I think we're gonna call it a day. And I will say, thank you very much for coming to talk with us, and thanks to the audiences both in person and also virtual for participating today. We hope to see you at the Loose Southeast Asia webinar, which is coming up very soon. Check our webpage on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are you?
Oh, geez. Things are too bad.